Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Awakening with the Girls.
Hi guys, thanks for listening to another episode of Awakening with the Girls. Super excited. I feel like we have a lot of really amazing topics that are going to inspire many of you today. I have somebody new that hasn't been on any of our podcasts yet, and I'm excited to welcome her to the Bring Me to Life community. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself and just tell us a bit about who you are and what you do?
Hi, I am Rebecca Davidson. I am a RYT 500, so I'm a yoga and meditation teacher. I specialize in the tantra kind of aspect of yoga. I am a metaphysician, or like layman's terms and jokingly a witch. But I do work with rocks, crystals, oils, tarot. I read palms. I see colors. There's a lot of different things I do. But my biggest mission in life, I would say, is probably to spread light and be light and to share love with the world and help them love each other.
That sounds like we have a lot in common. So I'm really excited to dive deeper into our conversation today. So I just kind of want to start at the beginning. The whole purpose of this podcast is to help other women realize they're not alone in their journey. So I'm kind of curious about the beginning of your journey. What kind of pushed you into diving deeper into being a quote unquote witch? I get called an angel witch a lot because I work with angels and I do the witchy things.
Yeah, we do witchy things.
Yeah, we do the witchy things, but we talk to angels. So it's, I like to say that we're angel witches, you know, like they usually like mainstream doesn't put those two things together. But for me, it was very much in the same. So I'm curious, what started your path? When did you begin realizing you were more of a spiritual person?
I would actually say it began with my mother. My mom was raised basically non-religious, but found various paths along the way in her journey. And the only thing she wrote in my baby book, other than my birth statistics, was, I want my daughter to know God. Mm. And she and I talked about that throughout my entire life. What that means. And then I would say what pushed me in a different direction definitely was realizing that in mainstream religion, my gifts weren't necessarily appreciated. Mm. And I was told they were bad. I was told I was making up things. I was told that I was crazy, like all kinds of crazy, toxic, dogmatic shit.
Which is why we are here making this podcast to remind others so that they do not have to feel that way.
Exactly. And then my spiritual journey kind of led me to a place where I just started combining what worked for me. Mm. And that's where I'm at. I started in my research and studies, because I started studying comparative religion relatively young. Which is actually how I found you in CeeLo, was and connected with you guys, was the fact that you had similar experiences. And I was like, oh, cool, I totally got to do this meditation class, but that's a whole nother story.
Yay.
Anyway, sorry to circle back around. I would say I knew I was different. I knew that I had an awareness that other people necessarily didn't have, or was having experiences other people weren't having. And that's kind of where it all got started for me, I would say. And then it really jumped off the deep end when I was about 3, it sounds really silly and is really young, but
not to me, because mine was about 4, so I feel you.
You get it, yeah.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I was sledding. It was wintertime. I was house, and it was really, really cold, and I heard noise in the woods, and they lived in Pennsylvania, so there were lots of hills.
That's where I'm at.
Oh, okay, cool. They lived like near York at the time. Okay. Yeah, so like York, Manchester area. And there I went down the hill really, really fast. I heard noises in the woods, and I started going towards it to see what it was. And all of a sudden, me appeared an angel, like legit wings, golden light, most beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my life. I had no other words to explain it. And she said, Rebecca, don't go in there. And I said, how do you know my name? And she said, I've known your name since before you were born. And I said, what's your name? And she said, my name is Marion. And I said, who are you? And she said, I'm your guardian angel. And cousin heard me talking to somebody. It says, Rebecca, who are you talking to? Yells down the hill. I turned around to say to my cousin Nikki, I'm like, Marion, don't you see? And as I turned her right back around, she was gone.
That quick. Yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah. So Nikki thought something had happened and it hit my head or something. And so we ran back up to the house and I'm like, I've got to tell Aunt Margie. Well, Aunt Margie was raised by Catholic nuns who were all her aunts. And so she hears this, she bursts into tears, calls my mom. My mom's like, what? My mom's like, we've never talked about angels. What do you mean she saw an angel? What? Like, my mom is super confused. I repeated the story. The story never changed.
So does your Aunt Margie, is she excited that you saw an angel because she's in religion, or is she like, okay, so she's excited. Sometimes, so like, when I saw my angel, everybody was scared, even though they were into religion. So that's why I'm like, what was the reaction? No,
I actually had a lot of really positive reactions.
That's good.
So it wasn't until the crazy part of my story happened in middle school. Because everything was totally fine. And like, my mom was just always like, okay, you're different. Like, it's okay. The firstborn women in our families tend to have gifts. And your grandmother had them. I had them. Grandma had them. Like, it's just kind of the way we roll. And, you know, you'll see us do things that we call family traditions, like smudging. We're part Lakota. So, you know, I grew up smudging. I grew up on January 1st, rolling coins through the front door, saying money on the floor brings money in the door, and saying little sachets into pillows, and, you know, always put sweetgrass under your bed, that stuff, and keep white beans in your purse, like little things, you know.
What do the white beans in your purse do?
Make sure you never go hungry.
I love it.
It's great. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's all stuff I learned from my mom and my grandmother. And in middle school, I grew up in Baltimore. And so it's not always safe. And I was going to a school where I was in the county of all places, but I still was getting threats, like serious threats from mean girls and bullies. And so I said, I want to leave. Well, there was no other choice for school that was nearby except for the Lutheran school. So little witchy Kabbalist Rebecca starts going to the Lutheran school.
Oh no, how'd that go for you?
Not so hot. I used to fight with the religion teachers.
I get you there. I used to get in so much trouble with my religion teachers and any pastor, priest. No, I guess I shouldn't say any. There's a couple that I've had some really good conversations with, but it's definitely hard to put ourselves in a box.
Yeah. And it's funny. There was one really good pastor. He wasn't at the school I went to. He was at a church near my house, and my family had actually started attending just because it was part of the school, and it was like, you got extra credit if you went to church every Sunday. And
nice.
So I was going through confirmation classes, and I started learning a lot about Christianity, and it just didn't vibe with me. It didn't feel right. And
how old were you then? I'm sorry.
I was like 12 or 13.
Okay, so we have a very similar journey. Keep going.
So I was like 12 or 13. It was right about the time I would have had my bat mitzvah. I'm Jewish as well. So
you had all this going on top of being Jewish.
Yeah, on top of being Jewish.
Wow. So wait, is your mom Jewish or is your dad Jewish? Or are they both?
They both have Jewish ancestry, but neither of them practices.
Okay, because I have a friend who's Jewish who told me that it has to be passed through the mom's lineage. Or
that's
something.
Traditional. Yeah, that's a really traditional thought process. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, he's from a traditional family and he's on the masculine side. So he said that
would make sense. Yeah.
All the things. Go ahead. Sorry. So you're at the school. You're going to the church for credit, but you're dealing with also
the fact that I don't believe I'm not Christian. I don't believe in Jesus. My Maimonides' 13 statements of faith make more sense. And so I'm studying all this stuff, and I sat down with the cool pastor. His name was Pastor Chris. And I said, Pastor Chris, I can't get confirmed. And he said, why? And I said, because I can't stand in front of a whole bunch of people and lie. And he said, okay, you want to talk about it? And I said, yeah. I said, I think I'm actually a Buddhist, or I really am Jewish. And he said, I could see either of those things being very true. Have you read much about Kabbalah?
I was going to ask you about Kabbalah.
I said, no, not yet. And he goes, do some reading. So I did. And then I was like, oh, okay. So I'm a Kabbalist, or as I joke, I'm a Jewish. And, and it's, I've had friends call me that, and they're like, yeah, she's a Jewish. She carries crystals in her purse, but, she braids challah on Fridays. And it's, I don't see anything wrong with it. Like, Jewish mysticism is a beautiful thing, and we recognize all that divinity. We work with the angels. Like, it makes sense to me anyway. I can't say it makes sense for everybody else, but it makes sense to me, and it doesn't conflict for me with chanting in Sanskrit. Like, I could chant in Hebrew, I could chant in Sanskrit.
I love it. I love that you're not putting yourself in a box. I like to say we're students of the spirit. We just go where spirit guides us and what brings us joy. I've learned through my journey of dealing with many similar things that life's more about finding the joy than finding where you fit in. Mm-hmm. Like, if you try to fit in, you're never going to be happy ever. But if you try to follow spirit's going to guide you to have an experience. It might not always be joyful, but it's teaching you something, which there's a joy in that too. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's beautiful. You're not putting yourself in that box. So now I have some side questions. If you can keep going if you wish. So you talked and you found out that you want to dive deeper into Kabbalah. What are some other things that maybe came up in your journey that you would like to discuss today?
I love the Vedic traditions. So yoga, meditation, Ayurveda, tantra, yantra, the art of it, it's all beautiful to me. So I love the Vedic traditions.
So you said you're into crystals. One of my favorite questions to ask my crystal friends is like, what are some of your favorite crystals and how do you use them?
I meditate with crystals a lot. I keep citrine and carnelian and amazonite in my art. So my second and fifth chakras are always balanced when I'm working. Let's see. I love selenite because it's the all-powerful healer.
Mm-hmm. It's like the battery. Selenite and quartz are like the batteries to me. They charge up all my other crystals. Like, I know people can't see it, but you're on my video. This here is a big selenite ball behind me, and I'm trying to get one that's like even bigger. So it's like not quite a bowling ball, but I'm getting there.
Nice. I have a really cool tower, a pyramid, and then I know the podcasters can't hear this, but then I have a little wand.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
It's so cute. It's so great. And then I also, it's a lot of like, there's some woo-woo stuff out there about the stone, the shungite. Have you heard of it?
I actually just listened to another podcast about shungite, and I have shungite. It's supposed to be super powerful right now, specifically with like the 5G and the
Saturn stuff going on.
Other stuff. Yeah. The other stuff going on.
Stuff.
Yeah. I listened to another podcast and she was talking about shungite, and she was even talking about putting a shungite sticker on your phone. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of curious. So I went to like the forum of it, and a bunch of people were talking in the comments that they did that. And even though they keep their phone next to their bed, they sleep better. Oh, so cool. I thought that was really interesting.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah. I use Organite for that process. I actually make Organite. So I've been using that. But shungite, it's another good one. Another one I like to use is obsidian. That's probably my favorite.
It's great. Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I use the shungite for a medicinal purpose.
Oh, do you bless water and things with it? I've heard that too.
I don't, but I have chronic migraine.
Okay.
And I can hear electronic frequencies. Mm-hmm. So I keep shungite next to my laptop. I keep it next to my phone. I keep it anywhere there's an electronic, so that way I can rest.
It's funny because the fedora I typically wear, It's in most of my pictures. There's a little pocket in it, and I have an obsidian and a piece of, I think, shungite, now that you said that CeeLo gave me, in the little pocket, so it protects my crown chakra.
I love that. Oh, that's dope. I love that. It's so cool.
And I also say that my hat generally protects it instead of wearing a crown, because, you can't wear crowns in 2020. I mean, I totally could, but people are so going to judge me. But my fedora is kind of like my protective crown. It has my little crystals in it, and it kind of shields off my crown chakra from getting attacked. Because something else I want to ask you about is, you said you see colors, and I say I see colors too. It's not necessarily... So I'll say auras if I have to connect with the person, but to me, it's not auras, because auras are a very different thing. It's a different frequency that I'm actually tapping into. I think I'm tapping into like the third layer maybe of the aura, where it's more the emotional layer. And that's
okay. So like if we talk about the koshas, like
I'm seeing more of the color reaction to their expression, almost like, and I think that I see it the way I do because I relate to chakras in their rainbow form, which I know is a more modern connection, not necessarily the historical connection, but that's how my brain and my guides process it for me. Okay. And my experience seeing colors started very young. So when you say that you started at 3, it doesn't surprise me, because I saw an angel at 4, and then at 6, between 6 and 7, I was playing soccer, and I had a very spiritual experience, and I looked up into the sky, and I never really got the ball playing soccer. I was a little chubby kid, and somehow, for some reason, they put me on the front wing, and I'm just like spacing out, staring at the clouds, and I look, and there's this sunbeam, and it's coming down, and I feel this channel, like this energy of my great grandmother, who I'd never known, but I'm named after. So I always kept having these like weird experiences as a kid, and I feel like I've channeled her in many a time. But I had this experience, and I'm staring at this hole in like the heavens, and all of a sudden I get smacked with the soccer ball, and I'm like, like it re-earthed me. And as I look around, everyone around me has a different rainbow around them, and that is when I started seeing quote unquote auras, or the energy is what I call it. And ever since, I had to kind of figure out how to process that. And my hat, my fedora, or when I cover my crown chakra, that kind of helps me when I'm in public kind of filter it out. It's like a shield. So that's kind of how I started seeing colors and energy. I mean, I think I probably saw them before, but maybe not as intense. That was like my memorable moment, like, oh, this is happening. I like remember running off the field and being like, Dad, what's going on? And he's like, are you okay? Do you have like a concussion? And then everyone, of course, thought it was because I got hit with the soccer ball. But I mean, I'm like 20 plus years later, still like, okay, this is very much a thing. So I'd love to hear about your experience. Thanks for letting me babble mine for a second.
No, that's totally cool. I remember seeing them as a small child, just seeing them and knowing why I saw them. I just knew that, and I didn't know what the colors meant. I just knew, oh, I might want to stay away from that person. That looks kind of scary.
Definitely started out that way. I was like, okay, this is ugly colors, run.
Holy shit, that is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, it's scary. And it's like,
when people say, I want to learn to do that, I'm like, no, you don't, because you know, and I actually had a friend, and I got in a fight about it. And then she decided to go learn on her own, and you know what? She got a little bit too deep too quick and backed right off and was like, I don't want to know. I'm like, no, you don't want to know what's out there.
It's definitely something that we should give people heads up. It's kind of like Pandora's box. Once you start opening the things, like you can try to turn it off and you can pretend like you forget it, but once you've experienced it, it's pretty much a part of your existence, and it's going to keep happening in some way or another.
Yeah. Did you ever have an experience where you thought you were an atheist or didn't believe in anything?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. So when I was 18, I was living in San Francisco, and I was going through a bit of an existential crisis. The show I was working on had lost funding. The woman I was seeing at the time had decided that she was going to go do heroin instead of date me, like all this messy stuff. And I was 18 years old. Stood on my fire escape in the pouring down rain in San Francisco and screamed at the sky, I don't fucking believe in you if you're even out there. If you are, I need an actual sign. I did not take anything. I did not drink anything. I did not go anywhere. Maybe I drank some herbal tea, had a glass of water, if that, and went to bed. I woke up from a vision, because I wasn't asleep, but I wasn't quite awake.
I get that.
And it, like, you know, that yoga nidra feeling where you're like floaty.
Yeah, and you're just like, I know I was like somewhere else, but I wasn't sleeping.
Yeah, it was like you were astral projecting, or even, and I had that experience, and I closed my eyes again, and I saw the most beautiful vision I'd ever seen of the goddess Sekhmet. Effectively is who I was seeing. And I'd never seen her before in my life. I had no idea what this lion-headed goddess looked like, you know? And I'm like, why is there a woman with a lion's head talking to me? And I said, who are you? And she said, you said you didn't believe in me and you needed a sign. Well, this is the only way you would accept me. And I had to think about that for a minute. And I was like, yeah, I'm like, if God exists, then it would have to appear to each of us in the way that we understand it. So it was a really crazy experience. I ended up kind of like seeing almost all these tree houses where like there were different deities, and it was beautiful. And then it was just like, well, wait a minute, like, is there a place beyond this? Well, yeah, of course there is. This is just one aspect. This is just one layer. And I think when you start getting into metaphysics, a lot of people get focused on one aspect, or a lot of times people who get into the spiritual practices will focus just on one deity or one pantheon or something like that. And it's like, well, wait a minute, that's just one layer. And there's so many languages and so many interpretations. And I think that there's so much more that's the same and that's different. And I think that that's really important too.
It's important to find your own truth and what truth works for you. I definitely had an experience where I've had several experiences where I thought I was an atheist. One of mine was definitely around the similar age. I was in high school and I was really angry. So I lost both my parents before I was 10. So I had a very interesting experience to connecting with God, and I was angry. So when I said I saw an angel when I was 4, the angel told me, I'm pretty sure, from my understanding, it was Archangel Michael. He was coming to tell me I was being protected. And I had connected with these angels, and my grandma called them my imaginary friends. Like, you know, every kid has their imaginary friends. I'd buckle them up in the car with me. I'd take them places with me, and they were very real to me, and they still very much are. And when I first started really seeing them and connecting and realizing that these were real energies, not just my imagination, was when I was 4. And basically, I like to say Archangel Michael sat me down and we had a talk. And he said, your mom's not going to be here forever. And he warned me that she was going to leave and that it was preparing me to be able to understand death very young. So I lost my mom, and then like the next year I lost somebody else, and then I lost my grandmother who was taking care of me, and then I found my dad. And it was just like year after year I went through this like death process. I went through basically the 7 layers of death with like so many deaths right in a row.
I had that happen when I was a teenager into my early 20s. That's crazy.
You became basically, I call it the death doula initiation. You understand death on a different level because you start losing everything you thought you loved and you needed to succeed. It shows you a different form of attachment, and it also shows you a different form of unconditional love. But I was angry because after I'd lost so many people, it was towards one of the last deaths that not the last ones, but in this series, in high school, my pap got cancer, and he was like one of the strongest people I ever knew. And he was like taking care of me as my dad. And I was just like, okay, God, if you are out there and you understand, I understand death, how can you keep doing this to my family? Not even me, but you're killing my family. And like seeing how they couldn't process it was the worst thing for me. So I was like breaking down. And I had a very similar experience where I wasn't asleep and I wasn't awake, but I know that time passed because I like to look at the clock for numbers. And I was like, I had very bad insomnia as a teenager because when I would sleep, I would have nightmares because I was like having all these downloads from energy and I didn't know how to explain them. So I knew I was in a different realm. And in my teenage years, I'd kind of pushed my angels away a little bit because I was overwhelmed and it wasn't cool and they were distracting me, and I was trying to talk to my friends about it and they didn't want to listen. So I was like, okay, guys, you guys just have to go somewhere. And I like channeled it into a different way. And that's kind of when I started my witchy path. And I was like, talking to the angels isn't cool anymore. I got to figure out how to connect with spirit differently. I got out like my ritual books and things like that. But then I was like, this feels dark. I was convinced then that I was doing something wrong because my family didn't understand it. My family didn't go to church, but they dropped me off at church. So they sent me through the confirmation process too, like you were saying. And I got to the end and I ended up doing it, but I did it on my own terms. I stood separate from all of my cousins that were there. And I said, I can't specifically in this moment remember the phrase, but they made us all repeat a phrase, and I repeated it in my own terms. And that was the only way I was going to stand in front of a congregation, is if I could say I was open to many beliefs, but I'll stand here now and say I honor this one, or something along those lines, because it made sense, but I knew that I had so many questions that I wasn't going to bound myself. And I think I understood chords and bounding before I really understood chords and bounding from previous lives, But after that experience, I started asking the preacher questions while my pop was in the hospital, and he couldn't answer them. So when I went into that, like you called it a yoga nidra state, where I was asleep, but I wasn't asleep, they showed, the spirit showed me the angels. I had Archangel Michael back with me, but I like to say it was the Council of 13, but I was number 13, but I was staring back at myself, who was my higher self, which was the entity of God. And that's in that experience. And basically my future, or my other self, told me that it was representing God, and that I was this entity in a higher fashion, and that God created me in his image. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. I've been taught that in Christianity. Right. They created me in his image. That's why I was like, I never can understand why they say his. Like, why are you a he God? And I was looking back at myself in a different, like, almost glowing format. And I'm like in my teenage years when this is happening. So I'm like, what is going on? This is a weird movie. But it basically explained to me that we are our own judgment. And this is all my perception. Nobody has to agree with this. It doesn't have to resonate for anyone, but this is what resonated for me. It told me that we are our own judgment. We are our own form of God. We're all gods, that none of us are necessarily special, but what makes us special is what we're willing to share with others to witness. So like our gifts as channelers and as healers, and as kind of, I don't want to say we're evolved, but we're evolved in a way that we're willing to express ourselves and what we've been channeled is our truth, where others, I like to say everybody has the ability to heal each other. They just choose not to. And that's where Jesus in the Christianity form kind of came through, was he was trying to teach us that we didn't need this entity of God, but that we could also heal each other and love each other and to unconditionally love. And that's why I was like, Jesus is my homeboy, but it's not my only path. Like, I'm not going to put him on a pedestal. And my higher self was kind of like, okay, well, you have to realize that you have to believe in something. And I was like, well, why do I have to believe in something? There's definitely such thing as an atheist. I don't have to believe in anything. Mm-hmm. But the experience was so powerful. And as I looked around at the council, they all kind of channeled telepathically to me what their purpose was. So I realized I had Archangel Michael there to help me heal people. And I would take Archangel Michael with me to help heal my grandfather, who he ended up passing, but kind of on his own terms in some ways. But what I realized was, by me having that experience, when I went to the hospital to sit with him, if I called upon Archangel Michael, I wasn't just sending healing to him. I was sending healing to anyone in the room, anyone on that floor, anyone in the building. And I started to realize how much bigger energy was. And I started to kind of dive into books and studying. And though I wanted to be an atheist so bad and believe that nothing was possible because I had been hurt so much, Spirit refused to let me go that path. And then as I lost a couple more people a couple years later, and I was in a super traumatic relationship, he was an atheist, and I was trying to be an atheist with him, because when I would speak my truth, or I would try to be spiritual, I was physically and emotionally beaten. So I had to kind of tone that down until I was able to break free from that bond as well and find my way back to spirit again. So I think it's really beautiful that you've also kind of navigated those different layers of the darkness, I like to call them, because it sounds like you've had very experience.
You haven't gone down my rabbit hole there.
Let's hear it. It's your turn. I've babbled enough.
Oh my God. I'm a domestic violence survivor. as well. My daughter is an amazing gift. And as far as I'm concerned, I made her by myself with the help of the divine. Because her conception should not have been a conception. Because she was a total surprise, because her biological male unit was a despicable person. And thankfully we have nothing to do with him anymore. Thankfully we are safe and happy and healthy, and we are good. And yeah, she's so amazing. She loves crystals and she talks to plants, and she is very much my teacher as well.
I love that. You said you created her with the divine. Did you have a specific practice? Were you wanting to have a daughter? I know you said that it shouldn't have happened the way it did, but I'm curious.
I dreamed her is what.
Okay.
I wasn't planning on having any children. It wasn't part of my life plan. I have, some genetics issues that I didn't want to pass on. But it just wasn't part of the plan. And then, it was December of 2008. Yeah. I woke up, it was the morning of my parents' wedding anniversary. Actually, I woke up from a dream that I was making a baby book for a little girl named Rowan. And I was having the help of these spirits and these angels and departed ancestors. I talk to ancestors a lot. And so
they're helpful.
They totally are. And they'll jump in.
They will. They very much will.
Yeah. So they're helping me make this baby book, and I'm pregnant in this thing, and I'm like, what am I dreaming about being pregnant? I'm dreaming about having a baby. What on earth? All this crazy stuff. And my abusive ex and I were not living together at the time. We were on one of our separations before the final separation. And I was like, how the heck is this even going to happen? I'm not with anybody. And I'm like, okay, I'm crazy dream. But I told my mom. And my mom's like, oh, wow. It's Rowan, that's a beautiful name. And I said, yes. She goes, what is that? And I'm like, I think it's a kind of a tree. And so we looked it up, and sure enough, it's a kind of a tree. It grows in Ireland, France, and Wales. Rowan is a gender-neutral name, but I happened to know that I was going to have a little girl from the dream. And fast forward through the brutal, ugly getting back together and all of that with my abusive ex. But I found out I was pregnant on Mother's Day, of course.
And a happy celebration, because we're recording this the day after Mother's Day.
Yeah. So Mother's Day is a fun, special day for Rowan and my mom and I, because I remembered it was Mother's Day, and I had been feeling pregnant. I could feel another energy around me.
Isn't it wild how you can just feel that?
Yeah. And I was just like, okay, there's another presence. There's a soul that wants to be born. And I would see this little flashing ball of orange light. And it was just orange and that color turquoisey blue in my background. Mm-hmm. Orange and turquoisey swirling around, bouncing around the room. What on earth am I watching? Okay, well, all right. And then I started feeling a presence next to me. And I heard a voice, you need to take a pregnancy test. And I'm like, it's Mother's Day. What? And I'm walking to Target, because I didn't have a car at the time. So I'm walking to Target. What on earth? And I'm like, this is crazy. I'm about to have my bachelorette party tomorrow. There's 2 bottles of tequila sitting on my counter. Me and the girls are ready to go. We're going to have a bachelorette party. And I took a pregnancy test, and I went, I guess I'm not having a bachelorette party. And called my mom and told her Happy Mother's Day and said, I think you need to tell me the same thing. And she said, oh my God. And I was like, yeah. She's like, it's Rowan. She knew. We knew it was going to be Rowan. And she's amazing.
So beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That is so beautiful and very, very powerful. I love that she was able to kind of give you that warning too before that experience went down. So that's really magical. I I had a similar experience with a baby energy. My experience is a little different because I went through, it was another process where the angels came and told me I was going to go through something to learn something so I could help other people. So when I knew that I was kind of channeling that energy, I knew that it wasn't going to be full term, and it was it warned me.
Yep.
I then also had the connection where I felt the energy. She came through my dreams. She told me she wasn't going to see Earthside, but that she was still going to be here to experience it. And basically, as traumatizing and devastating as it was such a wild experience to be able to witness that, even though I don't have the child on this side to experience that with, because I now know what that experience is like too, to also lose that. It was like the last layer of my death doula initiation. Yeah. I felt like, at least that's what I was told. I hope it is for a while, because it's a lot.
Yeah.
But when the energy left my being specifically and went back to being one of my guardians, I very much saw that too. I had to go through basically the surgery because there was a lot of different things happening with my body. I also have genetic issues. I never thought I was going to have kids. I never thought it was going to really be possible for me to have kids. It wasn't supposed to be possible for my mom to have kids. But she had me and my brother. So, everything's possible. If Spirit wants it to happen, Spirit's going to find a way, but it also has reasons for doing what it does too. So it wanted me to experience this. And I saw my colors were blue and purple. That's kind of why my colors now in the spirit are blue and purple, was that's the energy I kept seeing kind of going in and out with me. And when I had to go through the experience again and I was in the surgery, I was back in the council, but this time there wasn't as many. They told me some of them were elsewhere protecting. Basically, they were with my partner because he wasn't with me. But I saw the council, and her energy left my body and went to my mother's spirit, who was my ancestor. So my council, I know it was the council of angels, but they were channeling through as my council of ancestors. So when you said you could talk to the ancestors, it was really powerful for me, because I remember being on the surgery bed, and when they put me under, my mom was like behind me above my head, and I had like all of my grandmothers, my great grandmothers kind of around me, and then the men were on this like outer circle around them. And there was my higher self was kind of in front of me with a Mary Magdalene type entity, because I connect really strongly with Mary Magdalene and the Mother Mary. And they were like, the spirit will be safe now. And they basically showed me her energy and handed her energy off to my mom in spirit realm. And I got to see that whole exchange of energy. And they said that, honestly, now it's kind of wild to me, because this was 2 years ago, and they told me that it would be about 3 or 4 years before I understood fully why. And I think it's because I wouldn't have been able to handle the current state of affairs of the world and have a small child. I also they told me I had to prepare for things. So I had a shop at the time. I was trying to close it so I could go into this next chapter. And there were all these like puzzle pieces that weren't ready yet, but they said I had to experience it in that way to be able to understand how to work with other women who had went through that experience. So I thought it was really powerful how they gave us both a warning as mothers. And I've heard this from so many mothers. Some people really don't know. They don't have a clue. Maybe they didn't want a clue. But for those of us that are like, okay, God, give me like some sort of warning here for life.
Yeah.
That so that you knew that you needed to, one, not go through with the bachelorette party, because who knows what would have happened to Rowan's vibe had that tequila hit her. But she was powerful enough to be like, yo, Mom, we got to get this in lock. So that's a really beautiful story and experience that you were able to share. And I would love to hear more women's experience with how they know their spirit is coming through them, or their child's spirit is channeling through them. Because it's so powerful to hear the different versions. And I feel like women don't get to talk about that enough, because so many other women are also hurting from their experiences that they also don't get to talk about enough.
Yeah, exactly. Like, my conception was not a good experience for me. I mean, pregnancy was not a good experience for me. Birth was not a good experience for me. I'm amazed I lived through it. But now I have the most amazing person in my life who actually saved my life. If it hadn't been for her, I don't think I would have had the strength to leave the abuse. If it hadn't been for her, I wouldn't have been able to, stop self-medicating my PTSD with alcohol. I'm sober because of her. I am I'm a good, the reason why I'm a good mom is because I'm a yogi. Like, and I go to yoga because of her. Like,
I was going to say, when did you start your yoga journey?
I was 11 when I learned salutations, and my mom taught me meditation when I was really little. It's funny because I wanted to mention two things though, because you were reminding me of things when you were talking. The thing about the council, I totally vibe with that. And the thing about Jesus teaching souls to evolve in God within, that's what Kabbalah teaches. You are your Messiah. That's what we teach. And we have the divine masculine and the divine feminine in Hebrew. Like there's a reason why most of the words for God are non-gendered. And for some reason, well, we know it's the patriarchy. The Christian patriarchy specifically, they changed when they translated it, all of them to he's. They totally erased Shekhinah, which is for the divine feminine. And so when I say candle blessings, I bless for Shekhinah just as much as I do for Adonai. Like it's, or Elohim. For me, it's very much the same. And one's divine masculine, one's divine feminine, but ultimately they share divinity together. And we're all representations of that, which ties it back to the Tantra. And there's so many interrelations. And it's so fascinating. Like, I can talk to an Orthodox rabbi who has studied Kabbalah, and we can agree on probably about 90% of the things, but I'm not supposed to know about it because I'm not a man over 40.
Doesn't that drive you crazy?
It's stupid. And it's like, I've talked to female rabbis about it, and they're like, oh, get into it. My rabbi who I'm most connected with before she left our synagogue was Rabbi Beth, and she's gay. And I loved her to pieces because I was like, cool, okay. Like, nobody's going to be weird if I have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and nobody's going to be weird about me being a single mom because my rabbi is gay. It's great. And I was so excited. And she was so inclusive and just really nurturing for everybody. And then you were telling me about having angels around you. We teach little children, and they say when you leave synagogue on Friday nights, you have an angel on each shoulder. To teach children about that. There's a song we sing about being surrounded by angels, and it's like, to the left of me, Michael, to the left of me, Raphael, in front of me, Uriel, or whatever.
Really?
Yeah, I'll find the song and send it to you because it's so sweet and it makes me so happy. And when you were talking about that, I'm like, that's the song. I'm like,
it just gave me chills because I don't know the song, but that's how I see it. Is Raphael's to one side, Michael's on the other. I have one in front, one behind.
Yeah.
Have you ever read real quick? Have you read the book Solomon's Angels?
No, I have not.
Oh my gosh, you should read the book Solomon's Angels. Okay, it's a very virtue book, which makes me sad, but the story itself is amazing.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Damien Eccles?
No, but I'm going to put it on my paper.
Okay. Damien Eccles was convicted of murder, put on death row, found Kabbalah and high magic, and himself off of death row. He got acquitted completely because he was falsely accused. And because he was into metaphysics, because he listened to Metallica and he wore all black and he lived in the Bible Belt. And this was in the 90s, and he got railroaded and accused of being a Satanist and involved in this crazy child sacrifice thing. None of it happened. Like, none of it. There was something that happened with kids, but not with him. He had nothing to do with it.
Interesting.
So he gets totally acquitted. Now he's a spiritual teacher. I found out about him through Seane Corn, who's a yoga teacher who I really admire. I've taken her classes before at workshops and conventions and stuff, and she's great. She wrote a book recently. It's amazing. But they're friends. And she had said something about his book. So I was like, high magic. Okay, I'll read this. So I'm reading it. And he's talking about the Golden Dawn and the Rosicrucians. And he's talking about all this stuff. And as I'm going through it, I'm like, he's teaching, like, and he's talking about, like, the lesser banishment of the pentacle and all this stuff and, like, this really high ceremonial magic. And as I'm reading it, I'm going, that's a shielding technique my mother taught me when I was little. That's Kabbalah. That's Tantra. Like, going through, and it was like, Okay, so you're putting it all together too. Like, and I think that there are more of us who are doing that, who are putting things together and finding the similarities and really able to move our consciousness to the next step.
Definitely. I found that the best truth for me is whatever leads me to unconditional love. If it can teach me how to love better and to accept people as a whole better, even people that drive me crazy, if it can teach me how to understand and meet them on their level and to bring them closer to the love or God or whatever spirit, then that's kind of what I vibe with. But I agree. I struggled. I was like, how can I love angels so much, but also feel so connected to like witchcraft or the idea of connecting with nature? To me, it's not even witchcraft. To me, it's just nature, the elements. I'm an elemental. I work. If you look at my star chart, I'm balanced in all the different elements, and I love it. What'd you say?
What's your north node?
My north node. Is that my rising? You just asked me.
No, north node is a whole different sign. It's your soul's purpose.
Oh man, it's I don't know that one off the top of my head. I know I'm a sun Leo, I'm a moon Scorpio, and I'm a rising Pisces.
Okay.
And I'm still learning the nodes. I've got this fancy astrology book here by Yasmin Boland that I'm working on, so I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah. So the nodes, my mom's a karmic astrologist.
Okay, I would love to know more.
I grew up with my chart. Your north node is your soul's purpose in this lifetime. Your south node is the last experience you're coming from.
Okay.
And they're polar opposites. So my north node is in Pisces. My south node is in Virgo. I'm definitely moving in that Piscean path because Pisces cares about spirituality and mysticism. Pisces also has self-destructive tendencies. Pisces also has addiction issues. Look at all aspects of Pisces, good and bad. All aspects of Virgo, and Virgo is very dogmatic. Virgo wants exact answers. Virgo wants everything very organized, right?
I think I have some Virgo in my chart too. I have my chart right here. I can grab it. Do you want me to grab it?
Yeah.
Okay. Keep talking about yours while I grab it so people can hear about the different nodes.
Yeah. So, and then my mom might, you know what? I'll even ask her if you want to have her on here and talk about charts and stuff, because she's good at it. She studied it. I've studied, but she's got quite a bit of experience on me. Let's see. My sun is in Gemini on the cusp of Cancer. My moon is in Leo, and my rising is in Sag. But yeah, so the nodes tell you which direction you're moving.
You can keep going. I don't want to cut you off.
Okay. So yeah, so the nodes tell you which direction you're moving. Whatever's it. So like each house has its own stuff, that goes with it. And then, they tell you what, career is good for you, what your family life is like, what these dynamics and experiences are. And they don't really tell you what's going to happen. They just tell you the energy around that. And so, I don't buy into horoscopes, but I love looking at my ephemeris and seeing the energy that's coming into a certain day.
Horoscopes always confused me too, because I think that's where I got thrown, and I wanted to believe in astrology so bad, but the horoscopes were always kind of like, this is just real open-ended.
Right. But, that's how they're supposed to be written. They're supposed to be open-ended because they're just generalizations.
Right. And as I got older and now as I do general readings, I understand that there is a collective message there, but I was taking it way too literal. Yep. But I grabbed my chart. If you guys heard a big bang while she was explaining, that was me, sorry. But I got this astro chart. My aunt got it for me a couple years ago, and I started reading it too. And that's when I got deeper into astrology, and I'm still very much learning it. So that's why I was like, ooh, I can ask you a question. I believe it says that my node here is Capricorn. Is there only one node?
You have a north node and a south node.
Oh, well, this only tells me one node, and it says Capricorn.
Is the symbol with it?
Yes.
Okay, does the symbol have the little loopy things pointing down or the little loopy things pointing up?
It's like right around here.
I can't see that.
Okay. I tried. Okay, so the symbols are pointing down. The symbols are pointing down.
The symbols are pointing down. I think that's for your north node.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure.
It only gives me my moon, my sun, and then like where all the planets were, and then one node, a midhaven. What's a midhaven?
I'm not sure.
Okay, maybe that's my other node, and then ascendants and a vertex.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that.
I have to actually look at it, I think, to see where it was. But
Gotcha.
if Capricorn is your north node, then that means your south node is in Cancer, which makes sense with all of the death.
But it also makes sense as to why Cancers and me butt heads, because sometimes I butt heads with Cancers real hard. Not always, but sometimes.
Yeah, you're moving away from that. Yeah, you're moving away from that energy. It's why I don't get along well with anybody who has really dramatic ideas about religion or politics. Like, I don't do well with hateful, judgmental people.
I found that's what happens to me with most of, I'm generalizing. I dated a couple of Cancers, and they were all the ones that were like my handlers that kept me from getting into more spiritual energy. So it was really frustrating. Just for fun, I'm sending you my chart so you can check it out later. It's on your Facebook comments. So
Definitely, I'll definitely check that out. That's awesome.
I'm like, I want to know more.
Yeah, so let's see. Oh, I also I teach yoga, meditation, all that good stuff. So right now I am nursing an injury, non-yoga related. I got run over by my car.
Oh yeah.
So the dog, this happened about a week ago. The dogs were getting groomed. For some reason, the dog groomers are open still, but they're like by appointment only here. So my mom dropped the dogs off and asked me to go pick them up. So I picked them up. I have a 120-pound golden retriever and a 7-pound Shorkie. So the 120-pound golden retriever sits in the passenger seat, and the little 7-pound Shorkie sits in my lap because they're bad and they don't want to sit in the back.
Sounds like dogs. They think they can do it.
Yeah, they think they're people. they're like, we love you. We're not going to leave you alone. So I'm like, all right, cool. They like the yoga music that I listen to. I listen to a lot of kirtan when I'm driving. So
I love that.
Kirtan, like mantra music, just like down-tempo beats, just like anything chill. I'm just driving along. They like it. So I get home and they get excited because we're home. So I'm calling my mom. I'm calling Rowan. I'm like, can one of you guys come out? Somebody come get them. Please, like, come help me with the dogs. Well, nobody's answering their phone. At this point, the big one is jumping into my lap on top of the little one. So I just fling open my car door. I can't do it with my left arm right now, so I'm going to show you with my right. I fling open the car door, and they drag me out of the car. I realize my car's not in park and is rolling down the driveway. So I stick my leg back in to try to hit the brake.
Oh my gosh.
To get, to put the car in park, the door knocked me over. The dog leash got wrapped around one of the tires. And I got drug about 25 to 30 feet from my driveway into the street.
I'm so glad you're okay.
It's amazing I'm okay.
I want to say that that's like one of my biggest fears and nightmares. I've literally had nightmares of almost similar experience minus the dogs. I'm always terrified my car's not in park.
Yeah.
And I'm always terrified I'm going to get ran over by it or that I have nightmares a lot of my car sitting on a hill. That just blows my mind. I'm so glad that you're still alive.
Me too. The neighbor, I guess the neighbor heard me screaming because she was in her garage and she came out. And at this point, I had gotten myself up off the ground somehow and stopped the car. I had the dog. I was trying to get the dogs. I'd let go of their leashes in the madness because I didn't want them to get dragged. I thought they were getting dragged too. And I was like, they're going to get strangled. Like, I'm going to let them go. So I let go of them. I'm like, okay, I've got to get the dogs. I've got to get them in the house. That's still my main focus. Like, even though my shoulder's like hanging on, I think what I did was I tore all of the muscles in my left shoulder.
Oh no.
I still have functionality of my right bicep, but it's really limited. But I can only move my shoulder about 6 inches forward, 6 inches to the side, and 6 inches back right now. That's progress, though, for the last week.
And honestly, if you weren't a healer and able to kind of manage through that, you'd probably be a lot worse off. Yeah.
I've been using lots of on it. I actually used.
So you put on it. You cut out. I'm sorry.
I put different salves on it.
Okay.
I made a turmeric and coconut oil and honey salve for it. I'm I'm in Delaware and I have a medical cannabis card, so I used THC salve on it too, and that's really helping it heal.
Yeah, I have a couple of different CBD salves, and they've actually helped my lower back a lot because I have lower back issues as well and neck issues. The CBD salves they really have helped me. I was a little apprehensive or nervous about them at first, but they do work for me.
Yeah, they definitely. Yeah, I think THC and CBD work well together.
Yes. Yeah.
You have to find the right balance for your condition. Because of the chronic migraine and the PTSD, I have a dual diagnosis. So I have to find the strains that work best for me, which tend to be THC heavy. But I'm not somebody who, if I'm having an altered experience, I want it to be altered because of something I did, like ecstatic dance or meditation. It's not like I'm partying. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I'm not a partier. It's not my thing. I don't want to just like get stoned and not think. Like, it's medicine.
Yeah, you do it with a purpose, and I love that.
It's very conscious.
To honor the plant and to honor that plant medicine. That's very important, is to honor the plant medicine. Yeah. So,
speaking of which, the oils.
Yeah, tell me about those.
Yeah, so I have been working with essential oils probably since the first time I walked into a metaphysical store on my own, because other times I was always there to just pick up crystals or like pick up something specific, or sage and crystals, and that was really it. And then I started working with essential oils when I started working with candles about the same time, and setting intentions that way and using them to help bless the candles. Put the intention out there, wear them for wellness purposes as well as spiritual purposes. I started working with them a while ago, but then I got more serious recently, and I actually just became a doTERRA rep. So now I sell them.
I tried to do the doTERRA thing. I wasn't able to. My focus went elsewhere, and I wasn't able to understand it when I first started the doTERRA. So I did doTERRA because my aunt was into doTERRA. And I didn't understand the oils for a couple years, actually. So I stopped selling them. I carried them from my store. I owned a brick and mortar store, and we carried essential oils, crystals, sage, all of those things. So I had them more for that until I started to get into them. I really got into them when I was going through, I was going through a yoga training, not for the yoga, but for the meditation certification, because I wanted to understand meditation on a deeper level. And when I was there, it was actually the day before I found out I was pregnant through my miscarriage experience. One of my teachers there, the people holding the event, she said, "You're going to need this. I feel it's going to protect you." And she gave me my first mala, and it was it was blessed in frankincense.
I love frankincense. It's a great oil. Yeah. So
she gave me that mala. And then that day, basically, I found out that I was pregnant. I was going through that experience. So that mala and that frankincense went with me through that whole experience. And I also started doing a deep dive into Mary Magdalene and the Queen of Sheba and how she connected with King Solomon. And in that King Solomon, or the Solomon's Angels book I mentioned.
I'm writing it down right now.
Yeah, Solomon's Angels. It's got like a purple cover. But in the book, the Queen of Sheba goes and meets the King of Solomon, which my partner Suleiman has a deep connection to King Solomon.
I figured because of his name.
Yeah, and he didn't realize it until after that name and everything, but he has a deep connection to King Solomon. And I always liked the name Sheba. I always would just I have a drum I named Sheba, and all these different things were Sheba, Sheba, Sheba. And in that book, I didn't realize actually that they were connected in that way. But the Queen of Sheba brought King Solomon tons of frankincense to help protect his kingdom. So I was like, wow, there's all these different connections, and it got me more interested in the oils. And I knew that they gave frankincense to like the baby Jesus and the Bible and the Christianity. I didn't understand the purpose behind it. And then I realized that frankincense is said to be like one of the ultimate healer oils. It's supposed to be like king of oils or something along those lines. So that's kind of where my oil journey started. I'd be curious if you were giving tips to somebody who's never dabbled in oils at all, they're just like, I don't even know where to start, what would you tell them?
Lavender oil on the bottoms of your feet when you go to bed.
Okay. Will that help them sleep? Will it help them dream?
Both.
Both?
Peaceful dreams, better connection, maybe a little bit on your wrists if you want to be able to smell it close.
That's where I like to put it, as just a little dab on my wrists.
Yeah. But if you are, but for some reason, the soles of the feet, they really absorb the plant medicine really well. And you don't necessarily have to dilute it like with a carrier oil if you put it on the soles of your feet, because the skin is thicker.
Oh, yeah, because it's got your soul in it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. When my grandmother was sick, she was dealing with some kidney and different cancers. My aunt would put clove oil on the bottom of her feet, and the nurses would always be like, "Oh, you're doing your own healing in here," and they were like very intrigued by the oils and like the different practices my aunt would use with her. So I'm always looking for tips and tricks. We'll kind of round up a couple of loose ends here, and I would love to have you back on a future episode. But one of the other questions I like to ask people is, I know we've shouted out a couple of books, but what other resources would you recommend to a female that is just starting her spiritual journey, especially if they're wanting to research maybe different areas, since you, like I, have kind of realized that not one path is the true path, but a little bit of all. What would you lead somebody?
I always recommend everybody read the Bhagavad Gita. It's a beautiful story, and it really it's a great coming of age story. It's a great story of self-discovery. I've read it several times, and every time I get something new out of it. So the Gita is one of those books for me. Let me think.
Books, movies, resources, anything you can think of.
Let's see. There's a really great yoga movie called Lighten Up, which is really fun. I like it because they take this guy who's never practiced yoga before, and he's trying to find enlightenment. And it's kind of irreverent. You get everybody's opinion, from the Kundalini yogis to Baron Baptiste to everybody. So whether you are, somebody who gets on your mat just for strength purposes, or whether you're somebody who sits and meditates all day long, there's some bit or piece in that movie for everybody, regardless of what school or thought you come from. So I really appreciated that.
I love it. You made me think of, you said that it took somebody that had never experienced it before and kind of put it in. There's a really funny, kind of cute, witchy movie that maybe you'd like if you haven't seen it. Have you seen Half Magic?
No.
Oh my gosh. It talks about candle magic, and it's just this cute story about, it's kind of like these three girls that are in a very patriarchal situation, and the main character wants to do her thing and guys won't let her, and she makes friends with these two girls, and they start dabbling in candle magic, and it's really funny. It's kind of sexual, but it's like it's cute, and it's a movie that if someone's just getting into candle magic and that kind of thing, I would recommend it. So that's Half Magic, I believe is what it's called.
That's awesome. My favorite witchy movie is Practical Magic, hands down.
I feel like I've seen it. I'm bad with movie titles.
It's my feel good movie when I'm having a bad depression day, and I'm just having a bad day, or if it's like rainy and cold or whatever. I'm like, I'm gonna watch Practical Magic, and I end up laughing, and I love it. Nicole Kidman's in it, Sandra Bullock's in it. Stockard Channing plays one of their aunts. And then I forget who the other lady is, who's like the main. It was like the other lady. It's great. Oh God, Practical Magic.
I'll check it out. All right. So I want to give you a space too to channel through anything else you feel that you really want to get out today, as well as any message you would give to maybe your younger self or a younger version of you that's, again, just getting into this portal of realizing life is awesome in its own way.
Message for the younger self would be, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
I love that. And anything else that wants to come through for you?
Let me see.
Feel it out.
Speak your truth and speak it with love.
I love that too. Speak your truth and speak it with love. I'm going to put that down. That might be our title.
Yes, that would be great. If anybody wants to connect with me, they're welcome to.
Yes, how do we find you in the virtual world?
So I do most of my hanging out on Instagram. I am on Facebook, but very minimally. So Instagram is the best place to find me. I have two that are directly related. Well, I have my main account, I have a metaphysical account, and then I have an art account.
Okay. Shout them out. How do you want people to find you?
All right, so on Instagram, at YogiBex, YogiBex. There's also at Rebecca, REBECCA, _official. That's the art page. And then there is Create Your Life Wellness. And that's the yoga, metaphysics, and all that fun stuff.
Create Your Life Wellness. I'm trying to write them down for everybody. And what you can do for me is you can add me at Shantastic Shine from all of them so that I can follow them. And if anyone is listening, you can add me at Shantastic Shine.
Okay.
And I have two as well. I also have my at copper.and.shine alchemy. I know it's a long one, but it's where I put all of my crystal beauties and amulets and all of the things that I offer artistically. And then also for the podcast network, we have at PBM2L, Project Bring Me to Life. PBM2L is the network where you can stay up to date on other high vibe awakening content. And if you need music that's commercial free, you can find that as well at Project Bring Me to Life or bring me to with the number 2 life.com. Mainly you'd best be able to find it at bringme2life.com. Now that we got all of that fun stuff out of the way, I'll make sure I put all of it in the links and descriptions so that people can find us and go on an Instagram adding spree.
Yeah, I'm going through yours right now.
Yeah, I know. There's so many. I thought at first it was bad to have so many, but some people like to follow certain things. So if you don't want to hear my personal story, you just want to see my jewelry, that's fine. You don't want to see me selling things, you want to see my personal journey, that's fine. It's better to separate the things and give people a place to feel safe and see what they want. I don't want people to feel like I'm selling them things, but I do love showing off my crystals and art. That's part of why I was put here to give it to others to witness,
Exactly. And it's like when you're a fine artist, you have to, or a commercial artist, whatever kind of
artist.
Yeah, whatever kind of artist you are, you're here to make work. Like that's what you're here to do. And I meditate. My painting practice is very, very spiritual. I'd love to talk more about that in another episode.
Yeah, let's get you back on and talk about your painting, your creativity. Yeah. I'd like to hear more about your yoga too. This is kind of an introductory to hear your story.
Yeah. If you ever want to pop in, I'm teaching yoga on Facebook right now on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday mornings.
How do people find that?
You can find Rebecca Davidson - Create Your Life Wellness.
And that's a page on Facebook?
Yeah. If you want, we can link it to the show notes or something.
Yeah, if you can send me a link or like a list of all your links, I'll drop them in the show notes for everybody to check out.
Perfect. Yep. We'll throw that in there because even if I'm not streaming on that one, I usually stream on my personal one and then just post there later.
It seems to work better that way. That's what I do with my Shantastic Shine stuff too. Facebook pages are being screened and censored, so we're best to get out on our personal page. So if anyone's ever like looking for good content from spiritual people and their pages are slow or non-consistent, check out their personal pages because I feel like many of us have moved to that way of sharing it. The same with my Instagram too. It's hard.
Yeah. And it's like, because you'll have friends on your personal page and then they won't add your business page. And you're like...
But they want to see the things. They comment on them.
Exactly. And it's like, what? And it's funny.
Realizing some people just don't understand social media too. A lot of my following in my hometown is my... a generation just slightly above me. They're not... I don't like calling them the older generation. They're just a few years ahead of me, our side. Yeah. I'm 28.
Okay. So you're only a couple years younger than me. So yeah.
Yeah, so most of I work with a lot of women who are a little bit ahead of me in earth life, but in spiritual experience, they're just kind of diving in. So, and Facebook's not necessarily their favorite thing anyway. So they want to spend more time with their family. So I've realized it's just easier to use my personal Facebook page kind of as a space to share spiritual goodness. So I'm glad to hear that you're kind of on that circuit too.
Yeah, I'm on the same trajectory. I got off of Facebook because it was so toxic, and I was off for about 2.5 months, and then the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
I had to figure out how to teach and how to reach people. And because I don't teach in a studio, I make house calls. And I teach on Zoom. And so I had to figure that part of it out all of a sudden because I'm used to making house calls.
I'm very much living on Zoom these days. I feel like it's interesting to be able to see the portal into everyone's homes and existence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really funny.
I love that. Well, I'm excited because speaking of that, we're actually working together in Suleiman's practice. So I'm excited to learn more about you in the divine expression and creativity experience.
I know. I'm super psyched about that.
Yeah, it's a powerful one. I'm excited about it too. But do you feel confident about today? Is there anything else you want to shout out before we end this? We can keep talking later. I just want to make sure our listeners can hear what you want to say.
Yeah, I think that's it for right now. I don't have anything that's bubbling up that I have to say. So, yeah.
All right. Well, you hang tight. But for all you listeners, I want to give you guys a break. You can check out other episodes. You can tune back in because I'm going to get Rebecca back on. But I hope that you learned a lot of things. I hope you understand you don't have to be put in a box and you can find your own truth. And I've really appreciated having you here today, Rebecca. I'm grateful that I got to know you more, and I look forward to getting to know you even more.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm happy to get to know you better too.
Yay. Well, everyone listening, you guys stay awake, stay safe, shine on always, and I'll catch you next time. Bye. Thanks for shining on with us.